man-made life. They tell us how you fell from the sky. You're once proud.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. New Year approaching here pretty rapidly, and I want to go back in time, well, a few thousand years, maybe, but at least 40. That song that you just heard, Rainbow Bird, I wrote over 40 years ago for a movie series that I had planned called the Solomon series. I wrote that song and others. And it was basically about a character that has been a reoccurring theme in a lot of my books, a lot of my novels, a lot of my stories. And I want to set that, I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about that this time. Because, well, in Morals and Dogma, which I got sitting on my shelf right here, Albert Pike wrote, "Masonry, like all religions, all the mysteries, Hermeticism and alchemy, conceals its secrets from all except the adepts and sages, or the elect, and uses false explanations and misinterpretations of its symbols to mislead those who deserve only to be misled, to conceal the truth, which it calls light, from them, and to draw them away from it. Truth is not for those who are unworthy or unable to receive it or would pervert it. The truth must be kept secret, and the masses need a teaching proportioned to their imperfect reason. And every man's conception of God must be proportioned to his mental cultivation and intellectual powers and moral excellence. God is, as man conceives him, the reflected image of man himself." And the next statement he makes reduces the Masonic philosophy to a single premise. Pike writes, "Lucifer, the light-bearer, strange and mysterious name to give to the spirit of darkness. Lucifer, the son of the morning. Is it he who bears the light? Is it he who bears the light with its splendors intolerable, blinds feeble, sensual, selfish souls? Doubt it not." Now that's Freemasonry described by Albert Pike, Morals and Dogma. And up on my website, I've got this. This sets the story for you. This sets the story for you that will be in my next book, which I've been working on for 40 years. We got 3 books up now. I recommend you read them. Again, 2 fiction, 1 non-fiction. But what we're talking about now is a fiction book that I'm working on even as we speak. And I say, right here up on the Free American website, thousands of years ago, the earth was a different place. A race existed like no other. Theirs was a technology far ahead of the levels we know today. They faced a disaster similar to that which killed the dinosaurs. They sent their people out into space. Only a few brave souls stayed to help the less advanced inhabitants of the planet rebuild. They were genetically advanced men, almost immortal, incredibly powerful, telepathic, and able to manipulate matter with their minds. They were known as gods, angels, warriors, and demons among the survivors of our planet's close encounter with a galactic intruder. Now remember, I wrote this 40 years ago. Planet X was not on anybody's lips, and I was the one that first broke the story of Planet X, but I wrote about it 40 years ago. The legends and names of these beings are scattered throughout our history. Their power grew all-pervasive and hidden throughout modern times. Humanity was divided, conquered, and controlled by unseen hands. Today, the balance of power shifted into the hands of the most feared being in history. All right. Now, I will take calls today. And the caller number 646-915-8774. I don't know how much of this I want to give to you today. And I don't really know how much you want to hear. And yes, the PayPal site is working. That's right, well, Max has contributed. Lucifer was an angel, not a god, it is commonly mistaken. Okay. They used Lucifer as a cover for Satan. I think I'm tending to. I've got a little different view on this, Max. So I'm not going to get into your views here, Max. But the Masons are satanic. Lucifer is misdirected. Did they like to use Lucifer as a cover for Satan? Maybe so. Maybe so. Maybe the person that told Abraham to go out and sacrifice his children, his child. Maybe that was a evil being hiding you under the name God. Well, that's kind of what this is about now, folks. So, evidently, we got a little bit of interest here, so we'll continue with that. Okay. Let's do it. Now, I started this. It's kind of strange the way this comes down. You know, I've got a tremendous amount of research here. I've met everybody from Barry Seal to Terry Reed, who was sitting there with Barry Seal when Barry delivered a kilo of cocaine to George and Jeb Bush. So, a lot of the things that I write about in fiction are based on fact. Now, this is the way it starts. And this is really the way it started 40 years ago. And the story is still on my website on the archives page under the future past. If this was a movie, and this is the way I wrote this as a screenplay for a movie, the shot is a mountainous dirt road, a single chrome black Harley Davidson's kicking up the dust, riding towards a deserted lake. Lucky Lou is riding, and there's background music here, folks. Yeah, there's background music. Sympathy for the Devil is playing. Thousands, I've already read that to you. About thousands of years ago, the earth was a different place. Lucifer is a rider on a Harley. He wears a dusty greatcoat. He's telepathic, and the actor's voice picks up the narrative as the music fades in the background, but his lips do not move. The camera focuses on his face as he nears the lake. Lucifer's thoughts are audible while scenes of thunderstorms, volcanoes, and earthquakes fill the sky behind the bike. Flashes of pyramids and UFOs flash rapidly across the sky, reflecting his memories. And here is what the rider of this Harley is thinking. Revisiting the ancient sites had been the hardest on me. In my mind's eye, I could see the happy populace at play. It had what had once been a resort. I could see the statues and arches and massive buildings as they had been. I could see the old civilization as no one else on earth could see it. Reality came rushing back as the front wheel of my Harley hit a loose rock. I fought the handlebars to regain control and felt a small surge of pride at my mastery of the simple machine. I should have brought a Jeep, but I'd grown very fond of this machine and the society within a society it represented. I was at ease with the coarse, rough, good-hearted men who lived the last free lifestyle in an increasingly oppressive world. I have always gravitated to these kind. Lucifer stops the Harley, glances at the rock outcropping. Unconsciously, his fingers fondle his stash, a hollow keychain containing tiny pills that kept him alive. But he's still thinking, I wonder how much longer I would continue to take them. Maybe my time had finally come. I did not like this new world order and the limitations it placed upon me. I sensed the object of my obsession had already departed. Maybe the slogan in the 60s had been based on fact. Maybe God really was dead. His presence was lacking in this era. The children no longer feared him, respected their elders or life itself. There was no honor, no responsibility, no fear of retribution. Religion was reduced to feeding the poor, and there was no fear of God or devil in man anymore. Just as well, I thought. I'm tired of this whole thing. Lucky was my nickname, but luck had not been with me in my quest. There were still a few miles to go before the road ran out. I thought of the rash of UFO sightings. I was convinced that the government must have stumbled upon the secret of magnetic drive in its research, or found an alien craft, or one of the ancient ships that once plied the skies of this planet. The vast numbers of sightings had made my search far more difficult. Until now. The place I was looking for would not be that elaborate. It would be far off the track, beaten by civilization. It would have to have a large body of water. It would have to be high in the mountains. It would have to be deep enough to hold a mystery that had held mankind in its grasp for the last 5,000 years. Around a turn, high up in the mountains, there was a lake I knew would have to be there. There was the lake I knew would have to be there. I felt a chill run up in my back. Could this be the home of God? I felt like Indiana Jones seeing the Holy Grail for the first time. I parked the bike at the water's edge. No one but a few disappointed fishermen and some four-wheelers had ever come this way. The lack of fish in this lake was one of the reasons I was here. The lake with no name and no fish. It was about a half a mile across. I slowly walked the shoreline, looking for something only I would see. My eye was drawn to a large rock outcropping that rose from the depths of the lake. The massive rocks reminded me of those scattered about the lower shores of Lake Titicaca, but these were still rough and uncarved. The smallest of the boulders would have weighed more than 2 tons. No one would have thought of them as being moved by anything short of a volcanic eruption, but to my eye they appeared to have been carefully placed and stacked. There was no natural outcropping of this type of rock for miles. My lifelong search was over. Here on the banks of a lake in a tiny mountain range in the middle of the Mojave Desert lay the answer to mankind's greatest mystery. I ran shaking fingers over the hairline seams in the rocks until I found a hidden latch. The 1-ton solid granite door swung open to reveal a staircase leading down under the lake, as I knew it would. The air felt cool against my windburned face, and I unsheathed the small maglite from my belt. There were no cobwebs, rats, and few insects, so tight was the seal. The tunnel had been burned through solid rock, ran 50 feet beneath the lake bed. The tunnel ended abruptly. I directed the flashlight's beam upward, and it reflected off a mirrored, seamless metal surface with 5 indentations in the center. I placed my fingers into the indentations, and the ship responded like the old friend it was. The world had just changed course, just as we had predicted in the Mayan calendar. Maybe the next passing of Nibiru would not be so devastating. Now, in the screenplay, which you can read, by the way, up on my website. Do this. The next scene for the screenplay. Okay, hold on. Let me find this. Where is it here? Hold on. Okay, I got it here. In the screenplay, again, which you can read, the next scene, it takes place in a bar. So let me do this again. This is the modern interpretations of what I've done years ago. And there's conversations going on. Mike Jones, who happens to be a friend of mine, I made into a character into the book. He's in the band playing at the bar. Conversations around the bar touch on a variety of subjects. Obama, the Tea Party, Share a Pail of Planet X. Conversation stops briefly when the dusty, leathered up Lucifer walks into the bar. He sits next to Pappy, and Karen is peeling the label of her beer on the other side. Someone sitting next to Pappy is talking about 2012 and how I heard on the radio that Planet X was going to involve a pole ship, and Phoenix might be where the North Pole is going to be in the future. Karen is raising her voice to make herself heard over her cell phone to cuss someone out who was supposed to take her to the love ride in L.A. that was coming up. They canceled it last year over their damn economy. They're only letting 1,000 people ride with Leno this year, and you told me you could get tickets. Karen stabs the hang-up button savagely. Lying asshole. Lucifer takes a long pull on his beer. He looks at Pappy with a light of recognition and casts a glance at Karen approvingly. To Pappy, who had not bothered to comment on his neighbor's comment, he said, "Tell him it won't be here until 2015, and the pole ship will only be 15 degrees. It'll still be warm in Phoenix." Then he turned to Karen and said, "Do you want to go ride with Leno?" They both stared at the stranger, whose words seemed to embed themselves into their mind above the music in the conversation. "You got some inside information on this kind of crap?" Pappy asked. "Do you have tickets?" Karen asked. Lucifer says, "To both, yeah?" He turns and looks at Pappy. "Feel like partying with Peter again?" Peter who? Peter Fonda, Easy Rider. He's going to be with Leno and Glendale. They're going back to the original site where it started. "When did I party with him? Or you?" with an attitude. Lucifer responds, "Back when he made the movie The Trip, they filmed it at the San Souci Temple in L.A. It was hosted by the Barons. God, Nag, John. You were the only dirty dozen there." "That was 40 years ago. I don't remember you." "I was the one that made the call to Hendrix in New York and put him on the speakerphone." The light of recognition shone in Pappy's eyes. "I remember that, but that couldn't have been you. You ain't old enough." "I age well. We met once before that in the jungles of Vietnam." Karen speaks up. "Excuse me, are you asking me out? Are you telling me you have tickets?" Lucifer said, "I can get tickets. I can get us backstage. I have a seat available on my bike, but there's a price." "I'm sure there is. If you're as kind as you are cute, you might get laid." The band stops, and his words ring out across the bar. "I want your soul." Mike Jones walks from the bandstand. "Give it to him. Best deal you can make." "Hi, Lou." They shake hands. Lucifer says, "I understand you're playing on both stages of the Love Ride. Think you can get 3 more passers?" "Of course, Oliver would do anything." "Who's Oliver?" "The owner of Glendale Harley-Davidson, the man who started to run Love Ride. Lou's probably bought as many bikes from him as Leno has," says Mike. Pappy says, "So who are you anyway? You're too young to have been at the Temple or Vietnam. I'm not in the mood to play any head games played by a stranger." Mike Jones says, this is Lucky Lou's, one of the best talent agencies in the country. We met in Sturgis 20 years ago. He got me my first recording contract. What was the name of that biker rag you published out of Miami? Oh, yeah, Writers Exchange. And he mentions that you don't look a day older than you did at Sturgis. To the others, Willie G. Davidson, son of former Harley Davidson president William G. Davidson, the grandson of Harley Davidson co-founder William A. Davidson. He'll be at the love ride too. Lucifer said, I'm more than an agent, and I'm a little older than I look. Willie's a good man. His grandfather would be proud of him. Pappy stares at him. You knew him too? We met in 1903. That was a good year. That's why I like Mike's song yesterday, 1903, so well. He captured the essence of America there, then in the song. He looked at Pappy in the eye unblinkingly. That's why I backed him in Artie. Pappy, everyone's looking at each other. Pappy says, I might have to take you outside and beat the truth out of you. You're sounding awfully strange. Lucifer looks at him and said, that might be fun if I were not pressed for time. Pressed for time? You're telling me you know people from 100 years ago and you're pressed for time? Lucifer said, Pappy, Karen, Mike, Pappy had the right idea. Let's go outside. He walks out into the bar into the deserted part of the parking lot. The three of them follow. The parking lot is filled with Harleys. Lucifer turns to them. Pappy adopts an aggressive stance. Mike is smiling and relaxed. Karen senses she has stumbled onto something far beyond her range of experience, but is obviously intrigued by this tall, supremely confident stranger. I don't have time to compress 5,000 years of history into 5 minutes. I will try to answer your questions over the next year if you'll give me that time and loyalty. What I'm going to tell you, you will not believe, but you must. You must put aside all you think you know. My name is Lucifer. I was there when your Bible was written, and my kin and kind are the source of all of your legends, myths, and religions. What are you trying to say? Pappy says. You weren't joking about wanting our souls? You're saying you are the devil in person? You are the Nephilim? The Nephilim, according to the Hebrew, were a race that came to dominate the pre-flood world and is referred to in the Bible as the heroes of old, men of renown. They were reportedly the children born to the sons of gods by the daughters of men. It is also important to note that they are mentioned almost simultaneously in God's statement that he would destroy the earth by flood. It seems from this association that their effect on mankind was one of the primary justifications that brought the destruction. Nephilim is rendered fallen, or possibly feller, a tyrant or bully. Several English translations render the word giants, but of late translations prefer to leave it untranslated. The giants translation may have come from the Greek Old Testament, where Nephilim were gigantes, which looks like giant, but in modern Greek would be titans. In Greek mythos, the titans were supernaturally powerful offspring of the gods and humans. In Genesis 6, the global flood is described. It states that the Nephilim were also on the earth afterward. Many therefore assume that the descriptions of giants in reference to Nephilim bloodlines. However, the only specific mention of Nephilim on the earth after the flood is part of the bad report from spies in Numbers 13, a report that's called bad or evil, when from as in an unreliable source. When men began to increase in numbers on the earth and the daughters were brought to them, the sons of God saw the daughters of men were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. And then the Lord said, my spirit will not contend with man forever, for he is mortal, so his days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of men and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. Lucifer looked Pappy in the eye calmly, said, I was kidding about your souls, kind of an inside joke, but I do want your lives and your commitment to being in my service. I am not the devil. That was an invention of your clever ancestor to provide an enemy and a way to control you, kind of like Al-Qaeda today. I am Lucifer, the Lightbringer. I am over 5,000 years old. I've been battling incomprehensible odds and incredible forces for all those years. My friends became my enemies. We're not immortal, just very long-lived, with technology and mental ability so far ahead of anything you can comprehend, it would appear to be magic. Up until today, Your people and I have been at war with a force that masquerades as good. Your gods are simply false, or mostly false. Your Bible does not contain prophecy. It contains a plan. It is history written by men who simply wanted to enslave you and your kind. They needed an enemy, and they chose me because I wanted to give you the knowledge of a 100,000-year-old civilization. My colleagues did not think you were ready. I was forced to agree with them in general, but the minds and intellects I've run across in the last millennia have convinced me that there's a lot of hope for your races. I'm going to share with you all a few glimpses of my previous life before the conjunction you call the flood. Your God was my captain of the Earth ship Heaven, one of 6 ships built to travel the solar system, to contain all of the knowledge we'd acquired. Others, like the Asgard, the Olympus, and the Osiris Ra, were destroyed. This is how it appeared to us aboard Heaven. I'm using what you would term telepathy, your mind-to-mind power of communication. It will feel like a dream or a drug to you. We have the ability to tap into the area you call the Akashic Records. A Bible verse popped into Pappy's mind, and because of the mind link Lucifer had initiated, Pappy's thoughts were heard by others. Lucifer smiled. The Lord saw how great men's wickedness on earth had become, and that every inclination of thoughts of his heart was only evil all the time. The Lord was grieved that he had made man on earth, and his heart was filled with pain. So the Lord said, I will wipe mankind who I have created from the face of the earth, men and animals and creatures move along the ground and birds of the air, for I am grieved I have made them. That's Genesis 6:1-7. Now, on the stage, we see the crew of the Earthship Heaven. The captain is a huge, gray-haired, bearded captain. Tet Lord is angry and emotional. His wife was killed by a meteor before the ship left Atlantis. Captain Lord went mad. Lucifer tried to make him focus on the ship's crew and mission. He took that as a threat to his command. The crew on the circular ship wear devices on their back that can negate gravity and are perceived as angels' wings. The ship's skin can become translucent or invisible. The experienced angels were accustomed to the sudden disappearance of their hull and outside shell. The crew appeared to be standing above a fiery sky, enormous lightning bolts, and raging storms. And when Lucifer goes he finds the captain's log. The end's upon us. In a little less than a day, Atlantis had sunk beneath the waves. The next day brought us news of our remaining companionship. A mile above the surface, they had been hit by a tidal wave, forced to land. Communications were broken. We hoped beyond hope that the ship might still be intact and knowledge might be contained safe. It's impossible for the mind of man, to cope with the catastrophes of the magnitude that we witnessed. The burning skies, as tons of flammable material poured on the earth from Planet X, the walls of water that covered over 3/4 of the land masses, including the tallest mountains on Earth that happened to be on the side pointing towards Planet X, the horrible roaring of the wind, and the tortured Earth as the magnetic fields of the 3 planets met. In my rendition of this, there were 2 planets that crossed, and I had titled those planet Mars and Venus. Still, we don't know exactly which ones were involved. The Earth's rotation ground to a halt, stopped by gravitational forces beyond our wildest imagination. To us, it appeared that the sun stopped in its path. When it finally started again, it was going in the wrong direction, from east to west. Now, this has all been communicated to his friends in a rush. Pappy said, now, they flash back in the movie to the parking lot. The 3 are standing once more on the solid, hard, real parking lot. The roar of the party motorcycle displaced the roaring of the storms and crashing thunder. Pappy said, that was a hell of a rush, Lou. If you can make us see that kind of thing from your memory or your mind, then you have the ability to make people see or do whatever you want them to do. I'll bet you could erase your presence from our minds. We would not even be able to see you. That makes you, that would make you, like that craft, invisible. Very good, Pappy. You have a special ability. Made you good in the jungle and effective in the search and rescue stint as a deputy sheriff. Too bad you had to give that up to become president of the Dirty Dozen. Yes, I can do things like that.